There are stories that cling to the edges of reality, whispering in the dark corners of our thoughts, waiting for a moment when we are lost enough to listen. Stories that don't show up in textbooks or even on the internet. Stories that aren't passed down, but are lived. And sometimes, those stories are our own. It's easy to dismiss them when they remain distant, just urban legends or folklore passed around by firelight or over beers at the bar. But deep down, we know that every tale, no matter how unbelievable, has a kernel of truth buried inside. And if you happen to find yourself walking the wrong path in the wrong place at the wrong time, well, you might just be the one who becomes part of the story. It was late in the evening when Thomas began his journey. He was a man of routine, someone who lived by maps, by planning, by the notion that the road would always take you to where you needed to be. But even the most meticulous planners can lose their way. Thomas had been driving for hours, chasing after a sense of adventure that had been missing from his life. A weekend getaway to nowhere in particular, just to breathe in the air and clear his mind. The road was empty, the kind of road that stretches far beyond the horizon, where the lights of civilization fade into the dark. At first it felt peaceful, isolating, but in a good way. But as he drove deeper into the trees, the night air growing thicker, colder, his sense of direction began to slip. His GPS had lost signal somewhere back there, where the highway had turned into a narrow, winding road. But he wasn't worried. He had been on roads like this before, and he knew that all he had to do was keep going straight. He'd reach a town, a sign, something. He just needed to push through. The night pressed in around him, the trees towering like silent sentinels, their branches reaching for the sky. The forest was dense here, unforgiving. It was the kind of place you'd expect to find in an old folk tale, isolated and forgotten. But then, a flicker. Up ahead, just beyond the curve of the road, a light appeared. At first, it was so faint he thought it might be an illusion. Maybe his eyes were playing tricks on him, or maybe it was just a star through the trees. But no, there it was again, a steady, inviting glow, like a lantern in the distance. He slowed the car, squinting at the light, wondering if someone had set up a campsite. Maybe it was a small house or a cabin. Something, anything that would get him out of the cold. It was a house. A large, old house, standing on the edge of the road, as if it had been there forever. The light came from the window on the second floor, where a single curtain was drawn back just enough to reveal its warm golden hue. Thomas parked in front of it, his headlights casting long shadows across the worn cobblestone driveway. He hesitated for a moment. Something about the place felt off, but his fatigue, the cold creeping into his bones, drowned out any sense of caution. He knocked, once then twice. The door opened with a groan that echoed down the empty street. A man stood there, his face hidden in the shadows, but his voice, calm, soothing, almost unnervingly so, spoke before Thomas could say anything. "Come in, you must be tired." Thomas didn't hesitate. He stepped inside. The house smelled like dust, like old wood and something else, a faint scent of decay. The man, tall and thin, dressed in dark clothing that seemed to blend into the darkness, gestured to a chair by the fire. The warmth felt like a comfort. Inside, the warmth of the fire was immediate, a sharp contrast to the chill that still clung to his skin. The smell of smoke, aged wood, and something faintly sour filled the air. The man gestured to a chair by the hearth, where the fire flickered in its stone pit. "Sit," he said. "I'll get you some tea." Thomas sat. He didn't question the sudden hospitality, just sank into the chair, his eyes flicking over the room. The walls were lined with old books, their spines cracked and faded. Portraits hung crookedly, their frames dusty. Some seemed familiar, like faces he had seen before but couldn't place. Their eyes, however, those eyes, they followed him as he moved, like they were trying to tell him something, warn him. But the fire, the warmth, it made him forget. His eyelids grew heavy.